In a quiet town nestled between rolling hills, there stood an abandoned McDonald's restaurant that had long been forgotten by the locals. Rumors whispered through the streets about the eerie events that had occurred there, and no one dared to step foot inside after dark. One gloomy evening, a group of adventurous teenagers decided to challenge their fears and explore the derelict building. Sarah, the brave leader of the group, believed in facing her anxieties head-on. She was joined by her friends, Mark, a skeptical and logic-driven young man, Lily, a horror enthusiast with a knack for the supernatural, and Jake, the joker of the group who rarely took anything seriously. As they entered the decaying McDonald's, the air grew thick with an unsettling aura. The faded red and yellow walls seemed to close in on them, and the broken glass of shattered windows glinted ominously in the moonlight. Sarah led the way to the counter, her footsteps echoing through the desolate space. Suddenly, a faint sound of footsteps echoed from the distance, causing the group to freeze in their tracks. Lily's heart raced as she looked around, convinced they were not alone. Mark, attempting to keep his composure, dismissed the noise as mere echoes of their own movements. Pushing forward, they made their way to the grimy play area. Jake's laughter turned to a nervous chuckle as he stumbled upon a decaying Happy Meal toy. Lily's flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls, and a chill ran down her spine as she thought she saw something move in the corner of her eye. The group decided to split up to cover more ground. Sarah and Lily explored the kitchen area, where the abandoned fryers and counters looked frozen in time. Their flashlights revealed faded employee name tags and discarded trays. They exchanged nervous glances as they recalled stories of strange happenings that had occurred in this very spot. Meanwhile, Mark and Jake ventured into the dining area. The broken chairs and overturned tables seemed to tell a story of chaos and haste. Mark's skepticism wavered as he saw a faint reflection in the cracked mirror that seemed to resemble a figure standing behind him. He turned around swiftly, only to find emptiness. As the night wore on, the sense of unease intensified. Whispered voices seemed to linger in the air, and a strange odor filled their nostrils. Mark and Lily regrouped with Sarah and Jake, sharing their unsettling experiences. Just as they were about to make their way to the exit, the sound of laughter echoed through the building, growing louder with each passing second. Panicking, the group followed the source of the laughter, which led them to the play area. There, they saw flickering lights and a spectral figure of a clown-like being, its eyes hollow and soulless. Frozen in terror, they watched as the figure approached them, its laughter becoming more sinister and chilling. Desperation gave way to courage as Sarah shouted, "Who are you? What do you want?" The figure's laughter turned into a haunting whisper that seemed to come from all directions, saying, "Hungry souls, serve me." With those words, the figure lunged toward them, and the room was engulfed in darkness. The group awoke outside the abandoned McDonald's, the first light of dawn breaking through the sky. Their memories of the encounter were hazy, like fragments of a nightmare. They glanced at each other, a shared understanding passing between them. Whatever had haunted that place was best left undisturbed. As they walked away, the abandoned McDonald's seemed to fade back into obscurity, its doors closed to the living but perhaps forever open to the restless spirits that lingered within its walls, waiting for hungry souls to feed upon. The air was heavy with a sense of foreboding as Mark stepped into the dimly lit McDonald's. The once vibrant red and yellow colors of the fast food joint seemed muted and almost sinister in the low light. The hum of the fluorescent lights overhead seemed to echo eerily in the otherwise empty restaurant. Mark's stomach churned, not just from hunger, but from an inexplicable unease that settled deep within him. He approached the counter, where a lone employee stared at him with vacant eyes. The employee's uniform was disheveled, and their name tag read Ron, but the letters seemed to blur and warp as Mark looked at them. "Welcome to McDonald's," Ron said in a monotone voice that sent a shiver down Mark's spine. "May I take your order?" Mark hesitated for a moment before stuttering out his order. As he spoke, he noticed movement out of the corner of his eye. The play area, normally bustling with children, stood empty and still. But he could swear he saw shadows flit across the windows. He took a seat at one of the booths, trying to shake off the feeling that he was being watched. The sounds of sizzling oil and clanging pans came from the kitchen, but there was something off about the noises. They seemed to resonate with a strange, discordant melody. Mark's food arrived, and he forced himself to take a bite, but the taste was off, as if something was lurking beneath the surface. He looked around the restaurant, noticing that the walls seemed to close in on him. The portraits of smiling families that once adorned the walls now appeared twisted and distorted, their eyes following his every move. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, each second echoing in the silence. Mark's heart raced, and he felt a growing sense of panic. He needed to leave, to escape this unsettling place, but his legs felt heavy, as if they were rooted to the floor. A sudden gust of wind swept through the restaurant, extinguishing the overhead lights. Mark was plunged into darkness, his breath catching in his throat. The shadows seemed to come alive, swirling and dancing around him. He could hear whispers, unintelligible and haunting, as if a chorus of voices was speaking from beyond the veil. Just as suddenly as it had gone dark, the lights flickered back to life. Mark blinked, disoriented, and found himself standing at the counter once again. Ron stared at him, a blank expression on his face. "Is there something wrong, sir?" Mark stumbled back, his heart pounding in his chest. He had to escape this place, to get away from the oppressive atmosphere that seemed to seep into his very soul. Without another word, he turned and ran for the exit, the door swinging open with an ominous creak. As he burst outside, he gasped for breath, the cool night air a welcome relief. He glanced back at the McDonald's, its exterior now appearing worn and decrepit. He knew he would never forget the haunting experience he had just endured within those walls. And as he walked away, he couldn't shake the feeling that the darkness he had encountered was far more than just a trick of the light, that there was something truly sinister lurking within the heart of that seemingly innocent fast food restaurant. In the quiet town of Willowbrook, nestled amidst rolling hills and dense forests, there stood an abandoned McDonald's restaurant. The once bustling fast food joint had been closed for decades, its golden arches now faded and weathered, and its windows shrouded in cobwebs. Locals whispered tales of strange occurrences and unsettling events surrounding the forsaken establishment. Legend had it that the restaurant had closed abruptly one stormy night, its employees disappearing without a trace. No one knew the truth behind their disappearance, but eerie rumors circulated about strange sounds echoing from within, even on calm nights. Those brave enough to venture close claimed to hear whispers on the wind, as if the building itself held secrets waiting to be unearthed. As the years passed, the McDonald's became a macabre fascination for thrill seekers and paranormal investigators. Stories of lights flickering within the abandoned building and faint, ghostly figures seen through the dusty windows grew more common. Some swore they saw the spectral forms of employees, dressed in outdated uniforms, going through the motions of serving invisible customers. Teenagers often dared each other to spend a night within the haunted restaurant, and a few brave souls accepted the challenge. They claimed to experience unsettling phenomena, chairs moving on their own, whispers growing louder, and the unmistakable scent of French fries wafting through the air, even though the kitchen had been untouched for years. One fateful night, a group of 5 friends decided to test their courage and investigate the legends surrounding the abandoned McDonald's. Armed with flashlights and digital recorders, they entered the building, their laughter masking an undercurrent of anxiety. The interior was frozen in time, the faded decor and grimy play area evoking a sense of nostalgia mixed with dread. As they explored, strange occurrences became impossible to ignore. Their flashlights flickered erratically, casting eerie shadows on the peeling wallpaper. Cold drafts seemed to come from nowhere, causing them to shiver in spite of themselves. A sense of unease settled over the group as they reached the back of the restaurant, where the kitchen lay in darkness. One of them, Lily, swore she heard faint whispers urging her to stay. Another, Alex, felt a sudden urge to open the freezer door. Heart pounding, he obeyed the impulse, revealing a scene straight out of a nightmare. The freezer contained rows of frozen, lifeless figures, their eyes wide open in terror, forever captured in their final moments. Panicked, the group fled the restaurant, the sense of dread following them like a specter. They vowed never to return, but the horrors they witnessed haunted their dreams. the story of the abandoned McDonald's spread like wildfire, a tale of malevolent spirits and trapped souls. To this day, the McDonald's remains untouched, a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the familiar. Locals and outsiders alike avoid the place after sunset, unable to shake the feeling that the souls of those lost employees still linger, their presence a grim warning of the price paid for satisfying curiosity in the face of the unknown.